Welcome to Horror in Detail. Are you ready to embark on a chilling journey into the realms of darkness? The mysterious and the bone-chilling world of horror stories. On this channel, we are dedicated to unraveling the most terrifying tales that will send shivers down your spine. First story. This story was shared by you/111 More Nightmare. The screams keep getting louder. I don't have long. Hours, maybe less. It's nothing but darkness outside, and the screams keep getting louder. I need to warn you, God. I hope you listen. I have been writing stories on Reddit and other sites for a few years now, but have struggled to get that one breakthrough story, with my best story clocking up about 100 upvotes. I have written true stories, based on past life experiences, fictional stories of romantic encounters, sci-fi stories involving aliens or world-ending events, and my personal favorite, horror stories. I don't write for clout, but because I love it. But I will admit, I was envious of other writers who were breaking 1,000 or more upvotes. I just wanted to experience that, just once. So, I started trawling the internet for inspiration for my next story. I was determined to make it big, but unique. I was looking for lesser-known cryptids, haunted locations, abduction stories, anything I could find that would give my story a fresh twist. But nothing was good enough. I decided to check out my local library on my lunch break to see if anything was there that could inspire me. I went straight to the nonfiction section. I grabbed a bunch of old books on cryptids, UFOs, and ghost sightings, and was hopeful that something here would ignite my imagination, and started towards the librarian's desk to check the books out. Then, behind me, a dull thump made me jump. I turned around to see an old book had fallen onto the wooden floor. I guess I must have loosed it when I grabbed one of the other books, so figured I should be the one to put it back. I placed my stack of books to the side and bent down to pick the book up from the floor. I don't know exactly how to say this next part, but as soon as I touched the book, I was flooded with emotions like a cold shower running over me. I was happy, sad, scared, and angry. I was excited, had the chills, and nervous. I stood up slowly, soaked in sweat from the emotional rush I was experiencing, and turned the book over in my hand. It was a hardback, brown in color, and looked to be really, really old. The cover felt like leather but was lumpy, not smooth, and had randomly stitched ridges running through it. It was heavier than it looked, and I could smell a musty odor that I couldn't quite place. And it was warm. I should have put it back then. Hell, I should have just dropped it back on the floor and walked away. But I didn't. Flipping the book from front to back, I noticed there was no book title or author mentioned, nor was there the normal book details and library barcode attached to the spine. I opened it and slowly thumbed through the first few pages. Its pages were yellowed and darkened, likely because of its age. The paper felt thicker and coarser, and the texture was rougher to the touch than the smooth, polished pages of newer books. The ink was a little faded and smudged, and was a dark red color. There was no book name or author details on the first few pages, but the third page had an image on it that made the hairs on my neck stand up and my heart skip a beat. Spread across the 2 pages, drawn in dark red and black ink, was the most terrifying, demon-like creature I had ever seen. Its face was depicted to have exposed muscle, with little otherworldly tendrils poking out between the overlapping muscles. Its mouth, which spread from ear to ear, was wide in a terrifying snarl, exposing multiple rows of dagger-like teeth and a forked tongue. 3 crooked horns sat upon its head, uneven in size and shape, the mismatched deformities somehow making it even more menacing. It had 2 sets of arms, one set that reached out in front of it and ended in 3 sharp claws, and the other that seemed to double as front legs that ended in sharp, foot-long daggers. But it was the creature's eyes that truly sent shivers down the spine. Multiple orbs, each one a different size, dotted its elongated head, similar to that of a spider. And even though this was just a drawing, the eyes seemed to follow me as I moved the book around. Reading the description below the image, I found the name of the demon. I was really into demonology and was confident I had come across most demons that had ever been written about. But I had never heard of this one. I am not sharing its name with you, as I don't want anyone to try and find information on this demon only to find themselves in the position I am currently in. Slamming the book closed, I knew I had found the subject of my next story. This would be my breakthrough story, I thought, as I slipped the book into my backpack and left the library. I couldn't check the book out after all, there was no tag on the book. The afternoon shift at work dragged on, and I couldn't stop thinking about the book. As soon as 5 p.m. came around, I shut down my work PC and left the office without saying a word to my colleagues. Heading straight home, I pulled out my laptop and started writing. The story was flowing, my new subject was perfect. Empty cans of Red Bull started to pile up on my desk as I wrote a tale, darker than any I had done before. 5 hours and half a dozen Red Bulls later, I had written around 4,000 words and was feeling great. I decided then that I would shop this story around to publishers, as I could already see this story arcing off into a series and spin-offs. This was my golden ticket. I stretched my arms up over my head, my back cracking with relief. I twisted left in my seat, then right, to try to get the last of the stubborn cracks out. I glanced out the window, my eyes drawn to the soft glow of the streetlights illuminating the road outside. It was a calm evening, and the quiet hum of the night wrapped around the neighborhood. Across the road, nestled amidst the darkness, lay a serene park, its trees swaying gently in the breeze. With a final forced twist, and accepting I couldn't quite get the last crack, I went to turn back to my screen when something outside caught my eye. A shadowy figure emerged from the depths of the park, slowly shuffling in the direction of my house. Wrapped in darkness, I struggled to focus on the large silhouette. It looked like a large animal, though what exactly I wasn't sure. In the dimly lit surroundings, I squinted my eyes as I strained to make out details. It appeared as though the figure had antlers or something similar on its head, though in the darkness it was too hard to be sure. As I waited for it to reach the area of the park that was illuminated, the streetlights flickered and then abruptly went dark, casting the entire street into an eerie blackness. Staring out into the darkness, my heart skipped a beat, and a shiver ran down my spine. A few seconds passed by, when the silence of the night was shattered by an ear-piercing scream. Even though my windows were closed, my body automatically reacted, my hands shooting straight up to cover my ears. Abruptly, the screaming stopped, and the streetlight flickered back to life. With a slight tremor in my hands, I nervously glanced back at the park, hoping to catch a glimpse of the figure once more. Yet there was nothing there. The park stood still, devoid of any movement or signs of life. I breathed out the breath I had been holding and tried to calm myself. The scream was likely some wild animal. A large possum or owl, I assured myself. And the large animal probably got spooked when the lights cut out, causing it to run back to the tree line on the other side of the park. My stomach rumbled, providing a welcome distraction. I checked the time to find it was already past 11 p.m., and I hadn't eaten, so I left my laptop in my room and headed downstairs to the kitchen to raid the fridge. I hadn't cooked anything the night before, so there were no leftovers, and the freezer was full of raw meat and frozen veggies which would take too long to defrost and cook, so I settled on the idea of a sandwich. I was shuffling some old iceberg lettuce out the way to see what was hidden behind it, when the lights in the kitchen started flickering before cutting out, leaving only the light from the fridge to illuminate the room. I sighed, annoyed that this was still happening. My landlord had assured me they had fixed the issue with the fuse box overloading, but obviously they were full of it. I opened the drawer in the kitchen island and fished around for the small flashlight I kept in there. The fuse box is in the basement, and there are no windows down there, making it pitch black when the power is out. Finally finding the torch, I pulled it out and clicked it on to make sure it was working. The focus beam was strong, and it lit up the area it was directly focused on, but the rest of the room was still caked in darkness and shadows. I left the fridge door open, The extra light was comforting and made my way to the basement door in the corridor. I keep the basement door locked as I rarely go down there, but I keep the key in the lock, so I never have to hunt it out. Turning the key, I heard the lock retract and felt the door move slightly. Grabbing the handle, I felt a cold rush of air as I swung the door open. I shone the light down the wooden stairs to the cold concrete floor, revealing a narrow path leading deeper into the darkness. The beam of the flashlight seemed to fade as it reached the bottom of the stairs, as if reluctant to explore what lay ahead. The chill in the air made me hesitate for a moment, but hunger pushed me forward, urging me to reset the fuse box so I can get back to sorting something to eat. Taking a deep breath, I carefully descended the stairs, my footsteps echoing through the silence of the basement. The air grew heavier as I ventured deeper, and an eerie sensation crawled up my spine, tingling with a hint of unease. I put this down to the story I had been working on all night, which made me smile. If the story was leaving this sort of impression on me, and I wrote it, I couldn't wait to get it published and see the effect it had on those who read it. As I reached the bottom step, I paused to listen. I hadn't realized how quiet it was down here. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant hum of the refrigerator upstairs. The basement always seemed larger in the dark, stretching out before me like an underground labyrinth. Old, rusted shelves, stacked side by side like the library, were covered in dusty boxes and forgotten relics, most of which were the landlord's. The fuse box was mounted on a large beam in the middle of the basement, behind one of the rows of shelves. I worked my way around, being careful to avoid any loose items that could trip me up. The last thing I needed was to fall and injure myself. I rounded the corner of the shelf and spotted the mounted fuse box about halfway down the row. I continued forward, swatting away some low-hanging cobwebs as I went, when a rattle made me freeze. In the silence of the basement, the rattle was loud, reverberating around from all sides. I swung the torch around, my heart rate elevating. Sweat started to form on my forehead even though the room was icy cold. I swung the torch back and forward, in between the shelves and down the row I was in. My heart was pounding in my ears now, as my torch beam caught something moving between the shelves. I tried to aim the light at it through the shelves, but it was elusive and always seemed to evade the beam. Maybe it was nothing but some dancing shadows from the torch beam, I assured myself. I realized I had been holding my breath, not for the first time tonight, and let it out, calming down a little. Convinced I was overreacting, I slowly started towards the fuse box again, still flicking my beam left and right as I walked. I arrived at the fuse box as my heart rate continued to drop, setting the flashlight down on a nearby shelf and examined the panel. The fuses seemed intact, and nothing appeared out of the ordinary. Perplexed, I tried flipping a few switches, hoping to solve the mystery and restore the lights. Something clicked. In an instant, the room was bathed in a soft, comforting glow. Relief washed over me as I reached for the flashlight, switching it off and tucking it safely into my pocket. Eager to escape the eerie atmosphere of the basement, I started back down the row and back around towards the stairs. But just as I reached the bottom step, a sudden flicker in the lights caught my attention. Before I could react, darkness enveloped the room once more, plunging me into an impenetrable black void. Feeling a mix of frustration and apprehension, I fumbled around in my pocket, searching for the flashlight. As I grabbed it and pulled it out of my pocket, I froze as a shiver ran down my spine. All alone, in the cold, dark void of the basement, a warm breath fell on the back of my neck. I was petrified, frozen, unable to move. Then I felt it again, closer this time, and I heard a low, guttural rumble come from behind me. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt weak and wobbly. Summoning what little courage I could muster, I spun around, flicking the torch on and shining the light at whatever had just been behind me. But the light just danced along the walls and floors, revealing nothing but packed shelves in the basement. My heart pounded in my chest, the silence broken only by the sound of my own uneven breaths. Then, in the darkness, a shape moved slightly behind the shelves. It was a huge silhouette, wide and tall, seemingly hunched over, but still almost touching the ceiling. Touching the ceiling with what looked to be horns. 3 crooked horns. I wanted to scream, but nothing but a pathetic whimper escaped my lips as I turned and ran up the stairs. I slammed the door behind me, but in the process, accidentally jolted the key free. It clanged across the floor, and try as I might, I couldn't find it in the torch's beam. Down in the basement, I heard the stairs creak as something heavy started to ascend. Panicking, I looked around even faster, but the key was nowhere to be seen. Whatever was in the basement was now about halfway up based on the scraping on the walls and the thudding of heavy footsteps. Fuck this, I said in panic and took off, running for the front door. I could hear the beast, almost at the basement door now, as I reached the front door. I quickly unlocked it, swung it open, and stepped out into the dark night. I took about 3 steps onto the front path and stopped. It was a dark night. Too dark. There was no light anywhere, except that of my tiny torch. No street lamps. No house lights. No stars. It was a pitch-black nothingness beyond the reach of my torch beam. And the path in front of me. It dropped off, like a cliff, into a black void that seemed to absorb the light of my torch beam. There was nowhere to go. Suddenly, tormented screams broke the silence of the night, coming from all around me. With seemingly no other choice, I turned back to the house and ran back up the steps to the still open front door. I ran straight for the stairs and up to my room, slamming the door shut behind me, locking it, and wedging my drawers between the door and the end of my bed. I don't know how I will get this message out, but I had to write it down. I had to try and warn you. The screams are getting louder, and that beast is at my door. It's been there for the last 20 minutes, just standing out there, slowly banging. I know it could get through whenever it wants. I have a feeling it wants me to post this warning. Maybe that's how it finds its victims, through the knowledge of its existence. I don't know. Don't look for this demon. Don't read the book in my room if you find it. In fact, maybe it's better I don't post this. To protect you all. But the screams, they just keep getting louder. Second story. This story was shared by you/Crimson Moon 666. Is your door locked? For the last 6 years, I have spent most of my spare time feeding my urge to research the paranormal. I have a normal day job, of course, but the rest of my time I spend on the internet. Doppelgangers are my biggest obsession. It took hours to find the site, as well as years to find anything like it. I went through the normal websites with the crazies, claiming their neighbor was replaced by an alien coming to eat them in their sleep. So much scrolling and clicking, before I realized for about the 5th time in a month I had found myself on the dark web. The dark web is a horrifying place when you first see it, but the secrets that lie in it, in my experience, have been worth the risks. Experiment 606, no clearance below level 9. Now this was interesting. I have learned that by using the dark web, you can access government secrets, things organizations don't want you to know. Here's to hoping I found a gold mine. The beginning of the page started off with several newspaper articles. Mother kills child, claiming he wasn't himself. Oh, great. Another conspiracy blog. I muttered this to myself. I kept reading, though. There were 4 more articles on this subject. All were mainly parents killing their own children, but then it became interesting. Redacted report June 11, 2002. Robin Delphi found in the residence holding a knife covered in black liquid. A being was found resembling her son, but rather than blood it oozed black liquid. Robin has been taken to psychiatric treatment. She will be led to believe she went crazy. Creature has been confiscated and brought to the lab for testing. Creature labeled Experiment 707. I kept going. There were dozens of these, all with the same creature with black blood, and all reports being extremely short and vague. Experiment 606 file. Origin, unknown. Age, unknown. Ability, shapeshifter. Location, unknown. Warning, simply thinking of 606 will draw it in. Ensure you are in secure location. I laughed as I read this. Never once have I read something claiming doppelgangers could be drawn in with thoughts. I continued reading on. All other creatures confiscated did not have the level of intellect we have observed in 606. Most also killed their hosts before they were able to turn, but 606 only needed to see a glimpse, and it could. We have already lost 6 researchers since starting with 606. The creature has escaped from our hold 10 times total. I winced at the sudden loud scraping noise hitting my window. The storm outside must have caused a branch to snap. Currently its status is unknown. We can only write or read about it in a secure location, otherwise all researchers have been found dead. All doors and windows must be locked. 606 cannot be allowed to gain access. I laughed as I read this. Clearly whoever wrote this must enjoy screwing with people. With that, I clicked off of the website and decided to look elsewhere. Everything else I found was the same as it has always been. Within 2 hours, I was curious about the original site again, but even after an hour I couldn't find it. It was as if the site never existed to begin with. I decided to just start researching random cryptids. I took out my journal, jotting down little things I found. Once again, a loud, abrupt noise came from outside the window. This time I sighed and went back to my writing. I eventually got to my page on doppelgangers. I wrote small bits and pieces I found from the site, specifically about 606 and its abilities. I heard a loud bang from inside my kitchen as I did. Getting up and walking to the kitchen, the only off thing was a porcelain cup that had been knocked onto the ground, and my cat Bert staring at it. I sighed. Bert, seriously? That was an expensive cup. Bert's emerald eyes met mine, and he seemed to let out a huff before slinking away. I just shook my head as I cleaned up the mess, but the entire time I felt as if I wasn't alone in that room. My research could sometimes lead to a bit of paranoia, so it wasn't much of a shock to me that I was having these feelings. I came back in the room to see the page back up, but this time it looked different. It had somehow not only brought back the page, but it appeared to have pulled up new files from the researcher. My door is locked. My windows are locked. I swear, I swear, I swear. I hear it. I can never stop thinking about the creature. I cannot leave my house. I cannot take the risk I will forget to lock the door. I cannot end up like the other researchers. I can't. My family? Why did I take this job when I have a family? No. There was an entire page of this nonsense, and it slowly trailed off into psychotic rambling. I was starting to feel my stomach drop as I read this. I exited the tab, but as soon as I did, small pop-ups filled my screen. The words were all the same. Did you lock your door? The joke was no longer funny, and I became annoyed realizing this stupid website must have sent a virus to my computer. Did you lock your door, Jane? My eyes grew wide at the use of my name, and I unplugged my computer within seconds. As I did, I could have sworn I heard the tiniest giggle coming from somewhere in the house. I decided quickly it was time to call it quits for the night. Even after all of this, I cannot shake off the unpleasant feeling in my gut. Currently, as I finish this, my only thought in my mind is I don't remember if I locked my back door. I'm in my bathroom finishing up my nighttime routine while writing this on my phone, and I know my mirror should only have one of me in it. Instead, I can see 2 of my faces staring back at me, and the one behind me has a smile so wide it seems inhuman. Last time I checked, I also don't think I'm giggling. Third story. This story was shared by you/cryptid_muse. I visited a world of thunderstorms. I raced blindly through the barren forest. The downpour of rain made it difficult to see any measurable distance ahead. A single flash of lightning, quickly followed by crashing thunder, revealed a dilapidated cabin ahead. I hurried my step, finally something to shield me from the angry sky. I approached the door with a modicum of trepidation but amount of hope to finally be dry. There's no memory of how I got here, Perhaps my previous life was not but a dream, and this world of thunderstorms and isolation was the reality. Not once had I spotted any other forms of life, though I had been here for 3 days. Well, what I assumed were 3 days as the night and crashing thunderstorms seemed never-ending. I had slept fitfully with the rain falling atop me 3 separate times, my only way to even guess a semblance of passing time. Each time I slept, I hoped dearly to awaken back in the world I once believed was the truth. What I would give to again hear my kids screaming as they played and argued with one another. If I ever returned, I would never again complain about their incessant chatter. I think I might just revel in it. I smiled wistfully as I forcefully rammed my shoulder into the door to get it open. A bit of hope arose at finding the first appearance of shelter in all my time here. Perhaps in time I would also find other life forms and could gain understanding of the world I now resided in. For now, I cherished the thought of having a dry resting place. It required a heap of exhaustion in order to sleep with rain pelting down upon your face. A sneeze tore through me as I slammed my body against the door to force it closed. Already warmth had begun to course through me, which caused my body to shiver more violently. Dread chilled my veins as I realized how close I had come to hypothermia. I remembered reading once, in my old life, that being naked was better than wearing wet clothing, and began to remove the items one by one. They clung to my body as I peeled them off, and I glanced around the room for something to wring the water into. In the far corner was a small basin that looked sound enough to hold liquid, and I carefully wrung everything a few times. Above the basin was a thin strand of wire attached to the walls, and I hung my clothes upon it, completely filling the space available. There was little to explore in the cabin, but I checked that all entrances were secured. I feared being stumbled upon in my vulnerable state and quickly put my mind at ease. Though my stomach rumbled, the cabin contained nothing more than dust. I decided that if I slept in the nude, then the water I had wrung in the basin would remove the dust from my body. I laid on the floor nearby the door so that if any were to enter, the door would bump into me and alert me to their presence. I fell asleep without realizing it, and when I woke up I wondered what it was that awoke me. My eyes slowly adjusted to the dim glow in the room, and eventually I was able to pick out shapes and objects flickering about. I shot up. I had finally found the life that lived in that accursed place, and I wanted nothing more than to get as far away as quickly as possible. I raced over to grab my clothes I had hung in the farthest corner. As I rushed past the sinister beings, one reached out and sliced at my arm, in fear I now believe. I cried out in pain and recoiled from the jagged figure. I decided I didn't need my bra. In fact, I only needed my shirt and pants. I rushed out onto the porch, yanking the door shut with all my weight behind me, then began to dress myself. I looked up as I finished while I aimed myself to run away and saw several more grotesque forms standing around. There would be no way to get past without getting close. Perhaps if I was fast enough, I could pass by them unharmed. I took a deep breath and took off as quickly as I could. A cut on my shoulder, another on my leg, a final one landed on my cheek. I collapsed to the ground, panting with my vision fading. 3 days with no food, improper sleep, and now deep slashes finally took its toll on me. The darkness closed in around my vision as the swarm closed in around me. Bubba, stop. That's not your drink. This is your drink. I heard my daughter calling out from the front room. Was it all a dream? I winced as I pushed myself up. Cuts. My body had cuts that were not there when I went to bed. My clothes were damp, and I noticed I had only a shirt and pants on. I went to the mirror and stared at the slash on my cheek. The memories rushed back to me, the rain, the unnerving entities, the isolation. It wasn't a dream, it was all real. Fourth story. This story was shared by _the_misery_man. Google Lens is seeing something I can't. Hi. I don't really know how to start one of these stories. It only happened this morning. Sorry, I'm still a bit freaked out. I think this is the right place to write this. I'll start from the beginning. You see, I like to take walks in the countryside. The British countryside, to be precise. It just helps me clear my head after stressing out about work. I got today off and decided to go on one of my favorite walks. It's quite a nice walk. It's about an hour long and has plenty of scenic views. Sorry, I'm going off track. About what happened to me. So, I was walking along one of the best parts of the walk. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the southern countryside, it's mainly lots of grassy hills with lots of fields. It was on a path going along the top of the hills. There were many different kinds of flowers along the side of the path. I was trying to remember the name of one of them, and I remembered I had Google Lens. I'm not much of a techie person, but I know how to use my phone. If it matters, it's a Google Pixel. That might matter later on. If you don't know what Google Lens is or how it works, essentially you can use it to take a photo of something, and it does a Google search of what is in it. It can be used to identify things, what I intended to use it for, find and translate text, etc. If it cannot identify what you're looking at, it shows images similar to your photo. I snapped the flower, and it didn't work. Well, frankly, I think it did. It just didn't pick up the flower. Apparently, according to G-Lens, there was nothing there. But the images Google found were quite disturbing. It seemed to be showing me images of a dilated eye, like an animal's eye, a frog's or something. Like really dilated, almost no iris at all and mainly pupil. Though surprised, I took another photo, and the second photo told me what the flower was. It was a cowslip. I may have freaked out when it showed me images of dilated animal eyes, but I assumed it was a bug, and I walked on. I couldn't stop thinking about it, however. It was bizarre and creepy. It made me consider whether I should smoke my joint to calm my nerves. Usually, I smoke it under a tree off the beaten path further along the walk, but I decided not to. Creepy or not, I was still wondering what had happened. So I stopped to take a few more photos with G-Lens to see if it would do it again. It worked how it was supposed to, occasionally picking up the odd tree in the background. Then it happened again. One of the photos, aimed back down the route I came, picked up something that didn't exist. And the images it showed were worse than the previous ones. This time G-Lens showed pictures of shark teeth. You know, shark teeth contorted into that menacing smile they have. It shook me to my core. I don't think I understood the most horrifying part about the two image searches. They weren't really that unconnected or random. They were both body parts of something. A morbid curiosity must have taken control because I took more photos with G-Lens than ever before. I only just started using it today. Most of them found nothing, but some showed the same things. Images of an eye with a dilated pupil without any humanity behind it and shark teeth that could turn iron into mulch. Not nice stuff. The best image I could get at both. I could see more if I moved the search box, the white box that selects the part of the photo it was looking at. I don't know what it is actually called. Around. Where I'd imagine it had to be, it had two dilated eyes and the shark teeth in the expected places. However, searching the supposed rest of it gave me an additional detail about the mysterious entity before me, the branch-like hands/limbs. Branch-like because G-Lens showed me images of branches, dark and much like crooked tentacles. I am unsure how many fingers, 3 or 4, I think. I don't think I could imagine them in motion, but I don't think it would look natural. It was also next to a tree, so I estimated its scale, which made it look quite big. Using the images G-Lens gave me with my imagination, the best description of the thing would tower over the tallest person you know, have eyes dilated like a bat in the dark, teeth like one of those deep ocean sharks, and hands with fingers that may be able to move in any direction it wants them to. I envisioned a war shark, which might look comical, badass, or, most likely, utterly terrifying. After shooting the cryptid like a model on a catwalk, I started considering what it is and, more importantly, how dangerous it is. I knew it could see me. Not only was it closely inspecting me in my first photo of it, thinking about that thing staring at me with its unnaturally wide eye a few inches from my phone makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable, but it also followed me. Yet even given this, it couldn't touch me. I cannot see it or even sense it being there at all. I mean, it was literally not there. Yet, it was somehow there but not there. I thought it could be like the Demogorgon off of Stranger Things. If that were the case, it might be able to freely travel between where it was and where I was at will. I thought about whether it could get me or not, and I decided I'd rather not risk it. I decided to turn back, ending my walk early, hoping whatever it was would leave. I also thought I could smoke my zoot at home to finally calm my nerves. I wasn't walking or running. I was more hastily striding, occasionally jogging. Back at where I initially found the thing staring at me, I glanced down at where the cowslip was. Before I left, however, I stopped. I looked again at where the cowslip was. It was now gone. I could see the bottom of the plant still rooted in the ground, but the cowslip was plucked up by something. I wanted to assume it was another walker, but I knew it couldn't be, as I would have seen them walk past me from either direction. It took my mind approximately 5 seconds to realize the more horrifying conclusion. I took my phone out and scanned the area with G-Lens for what I hoped would be the final time. And, lo and behold, G-Lens found images of a cowslip offered by a disembodied hand. Though the hand in the images it showed me was colored and human, I could only imagine what the hand it was offering to me actually looked like. I realized that it could take things into its dimension. I froze like I was prepared to be taken as well. There was a moment of silence. Then the sudden sound of something behind me. Turning my head and expecting the worst, I saw it was just another walker asking whether I was all right. I almost let out a dry chuckle and turned my body to face her. She vanished. No joke. 1 second she was right behind me in my peripheral vision, and the next, as I was looking at her, she was gone. She vanished into thin air right before my eyes. I looked in every direction. She was nowhere to be found. Nowhere except in its world. I aimed my phone around where the walker was and put G-Lens to hard work. I took 1, 2, 3 more photos and found nothing. On the 4th, G-Lens searched for a specific stock photo of a woman with complete terror on her face. I would have found it funny in any other context, but it only made me more panicked. Again, I took more. 1, 2, 3, 4. It showed images of a hand clasping a red apple for some reason. 5. The 5th one told me the images were blurred due to the safe search being on. I paused as my thumb tensely hovered over the button to turn it off. I had to mentally prepare myself for seeing images I might be unable to unsee. Then, I turned off the safe search. I wasn't prepared. The images were of a bleeding heart clenched in an arm with blood running down to its elbow. My hands went numb, and my phone numbly dropped from them. I brought them up to my face in shock. I just witnessed someone being disemboweled alive. Even if I couldn't actually see it happening, I know that's what happened because that's what Google Lens showed me. I wanted to be sick. Why did I pick my phone up? I should have just run. But I felt I needed to see the rest of what had happened. I really didn't. I only needed to take 1 photo this time to get G-Lens to respond. 1 photo aimed at the ground the woman was standing at. The images, with the safe search already off, showed me a mangled corpse. I don't think I need to describe a mangled corpse to you, but I did not think Google could show such mutilated bodies. I can only assume she was ripped apart or, more specifically, dissected like a frog. That time, I did run home. After I got home, after I regained control of my paranoid thoughts, I tried to search Google for the cryptid that was following me. Of course, I found nothing. I might as well have discovered a new species of cryptid. Maybe I did. Not too long ago, I made one last scour of my home with G-Lens to search for that thing, but I couldn't find it. I did find something after 5 minutes, invisible writing on the wall. I knew it could only be that thing because only the text feature revealed it. According to G-Lens, it said Lenovo or followed by my full name. I freaked out when I saw it had written my name, as anyone in my position would, but I was confused and curious why it had written the brand of my laptop. Yet, The way it was written, with the trademark symbol next to it and everything, looked really familiar. Not 2 seconds later, I remembered that was what was displayed on my PC when I started it up. Plus, before logging in, it would display my full name. Once more, I felt the cold grasp of realization. I realized it must have been right behind me when I was logged on to my PC. I would be glad it's gone now, but I have no clue where it is. And I think it might come back. As I write this, I only have theories on what it is. I welled over all the supernatural mumbo-jumbo that happened and realized that it was trying to communicate with me. I think it thought Lenovo R was a greeting. That's why it used my name. Otherwise, it was just scratching what it saw out on my wall. Either way, I think it wants to know more about our world. Think about it. How it followed me, how it plucked the cowslip from the ground, how it dissected that woman to look at her heart. It's probing everything it can get its hands on. Perhaps it came here from somewhere else or somehow only found us due to the influx of development in our technology, specifically Google Lens's algorithm. Though I'm not sure how. It probably doesn't matter. Maybe I should be thinking about how dangerous it is. Because I definitely don't think it understands morality as shown by the awful display it put on for me. I also think I know why it cannot get me. Of course, if it could pull me into its world, it would have done it long before now. But to pull in things from our world, it needs them present on a camera. I don't know whether Google Lens has to pick up anything for it to do so, but I think it only plucked that cowslip because I had the camera of my phone on it when I was trying to identify it. Same with the woman, it pulled her in as I swiveled my body towards her, pointing the lens of my phone at her. Yet, none of this truly helps me. All I think I know is that if I appear in a camera's frame, it can get me. And looking at the top of the PC I am currently typing on, I can see it also has a camera. Can the thing turn it on if it learns how to? I should wrap this up quickly before anything else happens. I know I can't do the woman I saw killed today any justice. I don't even know her name, and I can barely remember what she looked like in the ever so brief moment I saw her. Nevertheless, if the woman's family, if she has any, is reading this, I'm so sorry I couldn't do anything to save her. I'm just sorry. Lastly, if any of you reading this know what the thing is, please tell me. I've been searching for it and still can't find it. Please, tell me I'm safe. Fifth story. This story was shared by you/Plymouth Moon. The Curious Murders of Jane Doe. Being a cop, you'll probably have a case that makes you. The kidnapping solved by some beat cop, the robbery outsmarted by an overlooked sergeant. Then there's the case that breaks you on some fundamental level. A missing child never found, a homicide scene that sends a veteran's lunch onto his shiny boots, or God forbid something you truly can't explain. The case that made me was a few years after graduating from the academy. An armored transport truck was hijacked half a mile from my beat in the center of Philadelphia. In responding, I had joined the front of the chase and side-swept the back wheel of the truck moving through a large empty lot. The truck flipped on its side, taking a few cars with it. In the public eye, I was a hero that saved the day, earning a promotion. However, behind the scenes I was on the brink of losing my job, due to the property damage incurred from my pit maneuver. In hindsight, it's a miracle no one but the suspects were hurt, but I digress. This led to a promotion to detective, with the caveat that I'd be exiled to some backwater southern town deep in the Tennessee woods. At the time I protested, but I soon realized that fighting it was futile. Resigned to my fate, I packed my things in preparation for my new life as detective of Porterville, Tennessee. My first drive down to the place I would call home was foreboding. That night the pine and oak trees swayed, fighting bitterly against the wind. I was 15 minutes away from Porterville driving down an open road, with only the moon and my high beams guiding my vehicle. The artificial light was melded with the unmistakable glow of a fire led amok as it illuminated my brown-skinned arms. The sight made my heart sink as two crosses set alight came into view. Under it were hooded figures that held aloft torches. Panicking, I shut my high beams off and tried to drive as stealthily as I could. The glow of the fire now fully enveloped me in my truck, keeping me petrified as I offered a silent prayer. The glow eventually faded in my rearview mirror, and I sighed in relief, continuing my journey to Porterville. The first week I arrived in town was eventful, learning the lay of the land, how poor of a shape our armory was, meeting the local Cherokee natives, and striking a deal with them. A deal that leads to where I am now, in Mayor Jackson's office with a prick named Herman sitting behind Jackson like a kid on Christmas. I only caught the end of Jackson's sentence as I exited from my thoughts. Not only did you guarantee them native officers and limited jurisdiction, it was all for a few pea shooters. Do you have anything to say for yourself? I cleared my throat, relaxing my posture as much as I could as I began. The deal benefits us much more than you realize. Our armory was piss poor. Our officers barely had enough 1911s and magnums to arm ourselves. Now we have vests, shotguns, an M700 sniper, 2 Colt M4s, a Glock for every man and woman on the force, and ammo and mags to last us till doomsday. But that isn't the best part. That would be the fact that having tribal cops would cut the area we'd have to patrol by half, and we'd only have to send 1 or 2 units to supervise. And besides, having native cops would help the tension around here. When I finished, I caught Herman half snickering before Jackson had shut him up. I don't want to hear a word out of you. The only reason you're here is because that fat bastard Sheriff Corrin is either too busy campaigning for re-election or eating a pie. The mayor then took a moment to think, then spoke. 1. I don't want to know where they got these guns. 2. You're responsible for any shit that goes down on their land. Their case is yours, got it? I smiled as I looked at the abject horror and disgust plastered on Herman's face. But my minor victory was interrupted by the mayor's phone buzzing. He picked it up, and I began to feel queasy as his face turned beet red with anger. He slammed the phone and began to yell at me. Congrats, Jason. Your new cops just found a fucking body. So get your ass down there and paddle them out of Schitt's Creek. Nodding quickly, I turned and ran like hell to my car. Barreling down the road, it took 20 minutes to reach the site of the body. Arriving there, I was beat there by my co-worker Officer Ruiz de la Cruz, or just Officer Cruz to most. Next to her were the 2 Cherokee officers who had first happened upon the body. Ruiz, what do we have? I half spat out, running towards the group. She shook her head ever so slightly, then started. Nice of you to join. TDLR, we have a Jane Doe. Mid-20s maybe, no ID or wallet in her handbag. But the body is telling me 5 different things at once. She gestures to the women now dead, pointing out various things while continuing. For one, it seems almost all identifying markers have been tampered with. The teeth have been removed, the fingerprints burned off, and there are patches of skin surgically removed. The residual ink tells me that those were tattoos that were removed. Jason, someone does not want us to know who that woman was. Then there's her leg. My eyes moved, and I caught myself dry heaving at what I saw. Ruiz begun to tear up slightly. Yeah, some sick took a bite out of her leg, which tells me we're dealing with at least 3 killers. 3? This only shows 2 maybe, and that's partly conjecture. Because all of that was post-mortem, at least I'm 80% sure. This was ultimately a ritual killing. Look. Her fingers fell on where the victim's chest was. There were surgical marks, like from a coroner, implying that someone else took her organs. Ruiz then gestured towards a handbag, handing it to me. With now gloved hands, I looked through her bag, only finding 2 items of interest. I've got something. Looks like our Vic was an escort. No name still, but there's a receipt from a bar in town. Finley's Pub, that might be our best chance to get some info. She nodded and our group dispersed, Ruiz and I inbound for Finley's. The drive remained uneventful as we pulled into the quaint bar. It was late by this hour, so my hope was slightly faded. Nevertheless, I marched in tow with Ruiz. The barkeep welcomed us in and asked for an order. Shine for both of us, Ruiz chimed. I followed up, And some information. Have you seen this woman? I held aloft a photo I had taken of the women, waiting for a response. The man returned with our drinks and nodded. Yeah, she came in a couple of nights ago with a couple of guys. Bad vibes from the guys. Did you get any of their names? Ruiz responded. Only one of the guys, a big burly-looking guy. Solomon Prescott. He runs a tiny slaughterhouse on his ranch. It's maybe 16 miles from here northbound. Can't miss it. We both looked at each other, downed our drinks, and sped off to our cars. Our bartender did not lie when he said we couldn't miss the property. A small plot of land, lined with gnarled, dead oak trees. And in the center of it all was a house and barn. I was filled with an ominous feeling as my partner and I raced up the driveway, weapons held tight. There was a light at the barn, and looking at Ruiz, we both crept up to the old building. This is the police. I shouted as my announcement was met with the blast of a shotgun, kicking open the barn doors. What followed was an exchange of gunfire, leaving 3 dead and 1 man with his arms raised. When we entered the barn, a miasma set upon us. It attacked our lungs and filled our nose with the scent of the dead. Ruiz had damn near doubled over to vomit, and it took every power in my body not to pass out. As I passed the bodies of our assailants, kicking their weapons away from their corpses, I took a notice to strange runes and symbols carved and tattooed on their bodies. Ugh. Solomon Prescott, I presume. Ruiz spat out roughly. Oh yeah, that's me. And I'm sorry about the smell. If I had known I'd have company, I would have cleaned up better. Listen, if you guys don't shoot me, I'll cooperate fully. Solomon said in a gravelly, matter-of-fact tone. We both looked at each other in slight bewilderment, then grabbed the man, shoving him into our car before speeding back off to our station. We soon found ourselves in a tiny interrogation room with the man known as Solomon Prescott. Officers, he started, here's just about most of the story. I have a taste for human meat. Ethically sourced, of course. I don't know why I'm the way I am, but nevertheless, about a month ago, I was contacted by an individual who identified herself as the mother. She told me that I could have the scraps of her human sacrifices. They ditch the bodies and I get a meal a day, so long as I don't interfere with the will of the father. Any dash. Ruiz butted in. Hold on. Who is this father? He's their god of sorts. At least they think it's their god. But God or no God, that thing is a powerful, old, primordial being. And the people with the tattoos, are those their children? I chimed in. Right on the money, officer. The family of EAD they call themselves. In fact, they're gonna have another sacrifice tonight. It'll be at the abandoned Hendricks farm. He paused as though he was finished, then interjected one more time. If you go, bring Molotovs, a flamethrower. Hell, any fire will work. We both nodded and thanked him for his cooperation, leaving him in the isolated box. I took out my cell phone and called Jackson. Jackson, no time. All officers to Hendricks Farm. Armed to the teeth, and I need a flamethrower. No questions. I hung up before he could respond and hopped into the seat of my truck, barreling down the road to the Hendricks Farm. Waiting for me in a nearby hedgerow was the Porterville police. Armed to the teeth, I gave a quick brief before entering the fields. Listen, people, there are 2 boys wanted alive. The mother and the father both have unknown appearances, but they should stand out. As for the rest, these are the Jamestown type, so they won't go alive. Don't let the job get you killed. Put these animals in the dirt if they aren't our poi dash. Are you insane? Do you know what this means for the department dash? Herman cut in, but was stopped after I stared at him coldly. Anyways, we'll move through the fields. Stay frosty and stay alive. The force of the Porterville police crept through fields, silent and still as death. We neared the end of the fields and gazed with horror. A glow surrounded the ceremony that reminded me of the glow that had shone on me my first day here. A chill went down my spine as I motioned for us to reveal our hand. In an instant, we had all unloaded our weapons into the groupings of armed cultists. A wall of smoke formed on the edge of the field, and walking past it lay most of our dead cultists. There was one woman, however, untouched, a still beating heart at her feet. "You fools, how dare you desecrate the stomping grounds of the Father?" The woman screamed shrilly. Her jet black hair seemed to stand up on command. Silence followed, but within that silence, the forest remained alive and announced the entrance of something. Torches lined where the ceremony was held, but there was a gap, and through that gap stepped the Father. A dreaded silence fell upon us all. Some cried, some prayed, and I just stared at the thing, fear seeping into every fiber of my being. It walked on 4 legs. It had the body of a mighty elk, but taller. Its fur was brown stained with spots of crimson, and a rib cage exposed to the world. Its head was confusing and indecipherable. There were too many animals on its face. It looked like a toddler had drawn it a little different each time. And atop of its head were 2 massive antlers, a crown of thorns for a god, real or fake. The woman turned to the massive figure and presented herself to it, her eyes filled with tears. The thing suddenly gored the woman with its antlers, dropping her to the floor like a used rag. Then the thing turned to us and spoke. "You have interrupted something you cannot possibly fathom. Your insolence will be rewarded with a fate far worse than hers." The creature bellowed, with a hollow yet full voice that seemed to fill the space around it with its presence. Panicked, I ran to find the party favor Jackson had sent us with. I walked to the thing in trepidation, tears flowing down my cheek. With false bravado, I yelled, "Then smite me down as a god would, O ye of little faith." Saying this, I hosed the abomination with fire. The scent of char and flesh filled the air as the thing let out a screech that I still can never forget. It backed off through the path it came from as a few brave officers shot rounds into it. Then the voice came back to forewarn us with a promise. "There will come a day when I return from this exile. Your machines offer you a false certainty, for they will fail you eventually. The flesh is stronger than you think, and it will surpass the machine in due time. When I come back to inherit what is mine, hope to your false gods you are dead before my conquest." The thing walked off to never be seen, but those words still haunt me. Ever since then, it has been the duty of each officer to patrol the woods to make sure that thing stays in its new domain. But every time I look out to the woods at night, I know that thing stares back at me, eyes full of hate and contempt. So I write this in case what I fear comes to pass, a record at least, of the murder of Jane Doe and the elk-like being of Porterville. But as I write, I can hear something in the woods call for us all, a headsman growing impatient. Thanks a lot for watching the video till the end. Subscribe to our channel Horror in Detail. Drop your opinions/suggestions in the comments section, and like the video as it helps with the YouTube algorithm.